Welcome to Million Hour Life Podcast, where we talk about everything longevity related. And the goal together is we're all going to learn how we can live to be as old as possible, over 100. With my goal, if you're as lucky as I plan to get, you might get to live to be 1,000,000 hours old, which when you do the math is almost 115. So together we will learn. And today we're going to learn from someone amazing, someone I'm honored to have on the show. Welcome to Million Hour Life, Cornelius Walker, who is former amateur bodybuilding and powerlifting champion, and can't forget, former Air Force Security Services member. So how are you today, Neil?
Oh, it's so good to be with you, my friend. How are you? I'm great.
Happy to have you here. So here's the reason I really wanted to have you on as a guest. Today's episode is about exercise, things that we can do, at our age now, even for younger people who are considering doing some things that you do, and how we can age together into our 60s, 70s, and 80s with keeping exercise as an important part of what we're doing for longevity. But admittedly, although I do fully believe you need both cardio and strength training, I am more of a cardio guy. So I wanted to bring on an expert on the other side, on the resistance end. And I don't know anybody better to bring on than you, because this is your life. This is what you've been doing forever. So let's start there. How long have you been powerlifting and bodybuilding?
Well, officially, this March coming up in 2026, on my birthday, it will be 40 years that I've actually been training nonstop, with exception to injury and sickness and whatnot.
Of course.
That I've been training. Yeah.
Of course. So 40 years. So you started as a child, teenager. Explain to me where you were at in life that got you into bodybuilding and powerlifting.
So as a young kid, I was very little. I was also very shy, and I moved to a new school in third grade, and growing pains and this and that, and as you grow up, you get goals, and you kind of start to figure out as a child what you want to be in life. I didn't really exactly know what I wanted to be in life, except for two things. I didn't want to be small, so I wanted to be big, and I didn't want to be shy. I wanted to be more of a hero. So I was thinking, well, yeah, I'll join the military. And also, I don't really bring this up too much, but I had a cousin. I still have a cousin. He's about 10 years older than me. He was a bodybuilder. And so I knew from a young age that I wanted to be, for lack of better terms, I may not have said it that way, but I wanted to be a bodybuilder. And I knew I wanted to go in the military as a very young person.
It's so funny because I know you well. And if you said, tell me two words that you don't think describe me at all, I'd be like, little and shy.
Correct.
So proud of you for getting to be who you became, knowing that this started as a little shy child who became a guy who I've seen pictures of on top of a tank holding guns that I could barely hold, with muscles that look like, The Rock would say, dude, how'd you get those? So,
right. Yeah.
Good work by you.
Yeah. Well, if your dream is big enough and you chase it, you will get results. It's just once your mind's made up for certain things and you go after it, you will attain.
Well, you are proof you can do anything. So I love that. So, all right. So now you're more seasoned in life, been doing this for 40 years. So do you mind telling everybody how old you are now? You said turning 55 soon, right?
Yeah, I'll be turning 55 March. And, that's a big one. And I look forward to it. But, as I've gotten older, obviously my regimen's changed. My outlook on the sport and on my own physical being has changed. Some of it I did on purpose, and some of it is just life. You get sick, you get hurt, and you get sidelined, and it kind of makes you sit back and reflect and reassess maybe where you should be, where you want to be, and it gives you time to see how things are going as well, gauge your progress so far. And
I love that. All right, so let's do this exercise. Okay. Let's go back to 40 years ago. And what would the seasoned, almost 55-year-old Cornelius Walker tell the 15-year-old Cornelius Walker about, maybe things that they should do differently than what you did?
Two things, primarily because I think that it kind of held me back. Number one, eat more food. If you're lifting weights and you're a little guy, as I really was, I mean, when I say little, that means when I was 15 years old and I started working out, I'm not sure I was 140 pounds.
Wow.
Okay. So, yeah. So and I know I didn't know the nutrition side of getting big. I just knew you had to lift weights. Yeah, obviously you eat, but I didn't know that you need to eat so much. And then secondly, I would say overtraining. I wasn't allowed to lift weights until I was 15 years old. So the way to get around that with my parents was I'll do push-ups and things that you don't have to lift weights. So before I turned 15 years old, you need to understand, I was doing about 500 push-ups a day at
Holy
100 push-ups a clip. So only 5 sets of 100. Very rarely was I not able to finish 100. I'm not sure you could pay me right now to do 100
I was
push-ups.
just about to ask you
I'm
how
not
many
sure.
push-ups. So I
But
do 100 a day, but
yeah,
I do them in 20 a clip. I
yeah,
can't imagine ever doing 100. I couldn't do 100 push-ups on my knees.
yeah.
So that's pretty impressive for a 15-year-old skinny kid.
Some of my coaches actually did tell me that, football coaches and whatnot. And they said, hey, listen, this is not normal. You got to keep, in order for you to be in this, you got to be able to keep doing that. And I was also really good at pull-ups because, again, I'm a skinny kid, but I was strong. So I didn't have much. So I was able to do about 20 some pull-ups a clip as well. And so I just kept doing push-ups and pull-ups. And so when I, later on in the military, people were impressed. Oh my gosh, how many push-ups and pull-ups can you do? But they don't realize I was doing it because I wasn't allowed to lift weights yet as a young kid. So that's why I was so good at it.
All right. So first thing you tell them is eat more. What other advice do you have for 15-year-old Cornelius?
You have to train, but you don't want to train so much that your body doesn't have time to recover. Because remember, when you're lifting weights, you are ripping your muscles apart. You grow when your muscles heal. They only heal with the proper amount of hydration and enough calories. And not just any calories, they have to be a certain amount of protein. As a weightlifter, bodybuilder, etc., usually you want a ratio of 1 to 4. What's 1 to 4? 1 part's protein, 4 parts carbohydrates.
Okay.
Also, if you're at that level and you're competitive, so you want have about 1 gram of protein per body pound. So let's just go off of my last competition weight was about 200. So that's 200 grams of protein times 4. That's how much you need in carbohydrates. So you need, about 800 grams of carbohydrates to grow. I wasn't coming anywhere near that, even as I started competing. It just,
I,
yeah,
I don't know how you could do it because I'm not a carbohydrate guy. I do mostly diets that are very low carbohydrate, but I am big on trying to get the protein in. And I'm under I try and get 0.7 grams per pound. And I'm about 200 pounds. So I got to get 140 grams of protein in a day. And I can only do that by shakes or protein bars because, sitting and trying to eat steak and chicken to get 140 grams of protein is impossible. Have you always done that, like supplement mostly with protein shakes, or do you eat that much meat?
So yeah, back in the day, I was totally reliant upon. At the time, it was Twin Lab. The company Twin Lab made protein. They had a thing called egg protein. I really liked it because my body didn't reject it so much. My gastro didn't necessarily accept just any protein off the shelf. I had to find what worked for me. But yeah, back then, especially when I couldn't eat as much, I relied heavily on protein supplements. And then creatine came out, and I did rely on that. I will say though, I didn't take that many supplements. For a lot of reasons. Number one, at the time I was broke. So there's that. Number two, back then, supplements were not nearly as prevalent as they are now. So there's only a few supplements out there that I knew worked and that I was able to consume. So yeah, I relied on that heavily.
Even creatine, you mentioned creatine.
Yeah.
Creatine's now everybody's love supplement. Like when you
Yes.
do research, everybody should be taking creatine
That's
for
what they say.
what they're finding out is for both physical and mental reasons.
For your brain as well. Correct.
Exactly, for your brain as well.
Yeah.
Women who are getting perimenopausal or in menopause should be taking protein. So now it's a thing that is believed that everybody should take it. But back then, it was kind of looked at like, you're almost juicing if you're using creatine.
Yeah, it was crazy because people got gains that they were not normally getting, including myself. Again, you have to understand, creatine took me from a competitive middleweight at 171 to a competitive light heavyweight at 198. Wow. And I was able to do it in less than 2 years. I had to stop bodybuilding for that amount of time because I couldn't keep cutting back and then try to gain that weight. I actually needed time off from competing. So in 95, I did not compete. in order to gain that weight to become a light heavyweight. And also, when you compete at a certain weight, in order to be that weight and strong on stage, you have to surpass that weight on your off season in order to cut down and be a big, a heavy weight. So you don't want to be in a 198 class but only weigh 180. Even if you look great, you're going to be dwarfed by the other competitors. So in order to be at the top of your class in weight, you have to surpass that weight. I would say by about at least 10 pounds in order to give your body enough, 10 pounds to cut that water and a little bit of fat you may have left before contact.
So you were pulling more like a UFC diet where you would get up for the weigh-in, or I'm sorry, get up and then get down for the weigh-in.
Correct.
And then by the time you competed, you might even weighed more. Or did you get weighed right before you got on stage?
So when I competed in California, the weigh-ins were the morning of. But when I was over in Europe and I was competing, they actually weighed in the night before. And I have to say that was far better because you had the night to get over it. And yes, you get to rehydrate. And that's really the worst. Wrestlers and all these people, it's the water restriction that you get towards the end. As a bodybuilder, you drink a lot of water, but not the last 2 days you don't. You dry out. And that is rough on the system and it's rough on your brain.
I'm a faster, man. I told you I fast 3 days a month every month. And because I'm training for a marathon, I've done 4 or 5 weeks in a row where I did a 3-day fast. But one time I was in a weight loss contest and I did what you're talking about, where I upped my water intake for 5 days with salt in my water. And then I had nothing at all for 3 days while I worked out ridiculously. Dude, I've never done anything in my body like that. I was driving to work the way in with one hand over an eye because I was seeing double of everything, eating just Gatorade chips to get the littlest bit of hydration in. Never would do that again. So I don't know how people do that as like a part of what they do.
And when we rehydrated, we didn't just rehydrate with normal water. We drank distilled water.
Oh,
old bodybuilding. This is old school bodybuilding. So again, you had to reach into the Arnold Schwarzenegger Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding to find something like that because there was no internet.
The reason behind the distilled water? That's something I never heard of. Is that something they still do today?
Distilled water, unlike regular water, that just has natural electrolytes, natural minerals and stuff in it. Distilled water has nothing but just H2O.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Well, you touched on something earlier that's really important, and it's recovery.
Yeah.
How did you recover then? And how does that compare to what you do for recovery now when your workouts are much different as an almost 55-year-old guy compared to a professional or amateur champion bodybuilder?
Right. So Lord willing, for most people, with age comes wisdom. So I do recover differently than I did back in the past. However, back in the past, to me, recovering would kind of be the same in regards to eat something good, drink something good, relax. Now, your definition of relaxing, I'm sure, changes over time as you age for most people. But back then, I was told, stay out of the sun and just try to be in a place where your mind can be still and your body can, just be at peace. And why stay out of the sun? Well, when you're in the sun, you sweat. Now, if you're close to a contest, in order to sweat, the water has to come out of your muscles, right? So that's out of your muscles, and it's between your skin and your muscles, which means your physique is not going to look as cut because it's called water. There's water in your skin, so you don't want to sweat because it brings the water out. So the last 2-3 days before a contest, you don't want to be in the sun, you don't want to get hot, you don't want to exercise either. A lot of people have a hard time saying, I got to lift my contest in 2 days, but there's a problem with that. You don't want to be sweating. You don't want to be exerting energy within that certain amount of hours, 36, 24, whatever, you choose before you compete. Your pump up before you go on stage should be a pump up that you haven't had in a couple of days. And you didn't get time to sweat. That's when you're going to look your best and feel your best.
Wow. That's crazy to have that strict of a regimen where you're worried about getting in the sun. But I get it. You're on the stage with dudes that are all giant, and it's being just that little bit bigger and bulkier than the guy next to you who might have spent an hour out in the sun.
It's really all about that extra little edge. It really, really is.
So I've heard you say before, talk about the difference between powerlifting and bodybuilding. You said something that, you wish you would have been a bodybuilder, but not a power lifter? Is that how you said it? As long of your life?
Actually, I would rather have just self-identified as a weightlifter.
Okay.
Because I am a weightlifter. Now, see, Lord willing, I will die a weightlifter. I plan on lifting weights until the day I die, and I love it. But weightlifting and bodybuilding and powerlifting are not the same. Although, yeah, when you think of weightlifting, oh, you're a bodybuilder? Yeah, you could be a bodybuilder. And also, to be a bodybuilder does not mean you have to compete. You're just a non-competitive bodybuilder. Some people really do it, but they just never take it to market, if you will, or on stage and actually compete. And some people, yeah, lift heavy weights and break personal records all the time, but they don't compete. But weightlifting, on the other hand, is just everyone should weightlift. Like everyone should take creatine. Everyone should worry about their hydration. Everyone should worry about their diet, because weightlifting has been proven that it can help you in so many different ways, in ways that we haven't really known until just now. And luckily, right now, where we live, physical activity, specifically weightlifting, is more popular than it's ever been.
Definitely.
And we're talking about, it affects things like your blood glucose, about neurotransmitters. It helps your brain. It helps your bones, osteoporosis. It helps everything. I mean, you name it, and you can attribute a good doctor. When you go see your doctor, if they're not telling you to exercise, if you're not already exercising, I would question.
You're not a good doctor. They're probably
I don't want to point the
too.
finger at people, but yeah, kind of that's how I feel about it, man. I mean, there is no supplement for exercise, any kind of exercise.
Including like anybody who's on an SSRI who didn't try working out first before they took a medicine for depression. It's been proven that, when they do the double-blind placebo studies, that working out is better for your brain in depression than taking an SSRI is. But so many people just want to take the shortcut, take a pill to fix things. So makes sense. And also, to another thing that's changed. When we were younger, women who weightlifted, it was kind of looked at like a butch thing. Like,
it was a little taboo. Yeah, it was.
Now women are in the gym getting jacked just as much as guys are, and age too. When we were younger, no one in their 60s or 70s worked out. Now you go on Instagram and you'll see people in their 80s still in there, powerlifting, squatting, doing deadlifts. So
yeah, in my experience, women are, and this is by far, in my own personal experience, women are more dedicated. They make it more of a lifestyle. And I'm talking about weightlifting. I know it doesn't seem like it if you don't know much, but I did this for a living. I paid my bills by being a personal trainer, and I've learned that women are hardcore when they put their mind to this physical fitness thing. It's hard for any man I've ever trained with to even hold a candle to them, because they tend to really go at it. Now, maybe it's just the people I know, but I doubt it. I've heard it from other trainers as well. And yes, they're finding out the benefits. I mean, just like you said, some people don't try physical fitness before they try taking an SSRI. And some people don't try physical fitness before they get work done to their body. Women, my friend, are finding out that, hey, I'd like, a better, let's just say, butt, or gluteus maximus, if it makes you feel better. But, guess what? You could go pay for one, or you could take your butt to Planet Fitness or any other cheap gym that you want to, or
get on the stepper.
Choice. Get to stepping, get to squatting, and I'll tell you what, you will see a difference. And when do you know you're done? When it looks like you want it to look. There are a million things you could do, and you don't have to go under the knife. And there are a million things you could do to settle your brain and get your thoughts in order and lower your stress and your depression and sadness that so many of us have. I am not beyond the things that I'm speaking about. But if you haven't tried, now, on the other hand, SSRIs are absolutely necessary for some people. So I don't want to talk about, they do work with the majority of people that take them and need them. But the key word is that need them.
That didn't make that the first thing they tried. It's like, nope, I have no choice. I need this. Absolutely happy SSRIs exist. Just like I am the GLP-1s. Everybody's taking Wegovy and Mounjaro. And I'm like, okay, if you have type 2 diabetes, or you're, 500 pounds and you got to figure out how to get down to a normal weight.
Yeah.
Okay. But people that are just like 30 pounds overweight that want to take an injection instead of getting on a treadmill and pushing up some weights are doing themselves a disservice. So
yeah, and you have to always remember, the body does become dependent upon these medicines that, yes, they're effective, and yes, that's great. But, personally, I always saw things as, yes, it works, but do I have to keep taking it? And what are the side effects that come along with it? Everything has a price. Okay. I don't care. Even aspirin, vitamin C, everything has a price. You should know the price before you get into it, and also know the alternatives. So like you said, you should exhaust all means before you go on something that has that side effects and things like that. And there are a lot of natural things that are working today as well. We're kind of getting back to our traits as humans from hundreds of years ago. There's things and medicines and foods that people took hundreds and even thousands of years ago that are coming back now. And it's like, we always knew this, but we got away from it. So, again, and I know that you and I have talked about this personally, just hanging out, but like, you really got to study this stuff. You really need to learn about it. Don't just think that you can go to the gym, lift weights, and eat something that's kind of healthy and it's going to work. The more you know, the more you know. Learning about this is like having a full toolbox, or a toolbox with just a broken hammer and a screwdriver in it. You got to have tools to get this done. And if you want to do it forever, yes, you want to have a full toolbox so alternate. You get hurt and you can't do the same physical routine that you were doing before. You need to know, what can I do in lieu of that in order to keep my health and strength up as well. So that's where the knowledge of lifting weights or your specific sport come into play.
yeah, man, because you nailed it. There's no free lunch, and there's side effects to everything. So like the GLP-1s, most people don't realize that you're losing weight, but most of the weight that you're losing is lean muscle. It's not all fat. So if you're not, like we talked about earlier, hitting your protein goals, your body is eating itself and eating the muscle that you're going to really regret when you get off of that. And now you gain all the weight back, but now it's all fat because your muscle got eaten by the peptide that you injected into yourself. It's like, man, do the research, look at everything, and then don't just try and take the shortcut. Look at what's the best way to get the effect I want with the least impact on my body. So
yeah. Also, just like a lot of things that people take, once you start taking some supplements and GLP-1s, your body and your metabolism, they forget how to metabolize. And so when you have to go off, or you just happen to go off of these things, so not only is your eating going to be different, and you're not on this medication now your metabolism doesn't know how to work without this medicine going through, and so your body is basically put in shock. And if you do the research, and I've done just a little bit on GLP-1s, I asked a question, and that question was, should you go off of GLP-1 medications? And the answer is just simply no. It's just no. Well, that's kind of scary. Anything that you go on and says, yeah, you can't never come off. Ooh, that should raise a red flag with anyone. Not saying it doesn't work, not saying you shouldn't go on it. But boy, you better realize the decision that you're making when you do it, because it sounds to me like a lifetime decision.
It is, and that's crazy. The only supplement I want for life is sun, vitamin D. Everything else, I'll be on it. I'll use it when I need it, but I don't want to rely on it, especially something that is prescribed by a doctor if I can avoid it. So
yeah.
So you had mentioned wanting to lift weights until you die, which, by the way, I hope is a really, really long time from now. I hope you, like me, live to be 115 years old and we're someday celebrating and playing pickleball in our hundreds. But tell me how you see weightlifting work. You're 55 now. Have you thought about how that'll change into your 60s, into your 70s, into your 80s? Or is your goal just do as much as you can for as long as you can?
Well, my goal was that. And about 2 years ago, maybe 3, I was sidelined. And I was sidelined this time. This was the longest I've ever been sidelined. It was for about 2 years. I lost quite a bit of weight. Not as much strength, but I lost more weight than I lost of anything. And that wasn't totally bad, because it was the biggest I'd ever been. But during that time, as I said earlier, I was able to reflect and able to gauge where I was at mentally, where I was at physically, and reset goals or reinvent myself, if you will. And I also realized that this was not just going to be a physical thing. This was going to be a mental thing. So after I was hurt for a while and I was still on the sidelines, not really working out, I, as you know, went and got a sports psychologist. I've done a lot of things that were not necessarily weightlifting, but they were definitely directly related. I realized that in order to change the way I train and change the way I think and reinvent myself and be a more efficient person, human, I had to change how I lifted, what I lifted. So the amount of time I lifted, so how often, how frequent I lifted, how many times a week, how long those sessions were, 4 hours, 2 hours, and then obviously the weight and the repetition. So, again, lifting weights sounds simple, but I promise you this, any bodybuilder, powerlifter that has done anything remotely remarkable is a pretty smart person. You have to be a smart person to juggle the things you have to know to get your body and mind on the same page and be on the same page on the right day. If you train all year, 364 days for one competition, you have to be ready on that day. And that means everything has to come in play at once. One without the other is zero. So a lot of people say, what's more important, diet, exercise, or this? And my new honest answer is one without the other is zero. You have to have them all, because missing one, you cannot place. You cannot even show up for the contest. So I don't really know that there's one that's more important than the other after further thought. They're all so important and they all need to be together.
All right. So tell me this, because you mentioned mental, and I want to talk about your sports psychologist. What percent of bodybuilding and powerlifting, now we're talking about the competitive side of it, what amount of that, what percent of that was physical compared to what percent of that was mental? And then after that, let's talk about your sports psychologist, because that is something very interesting. So a phrase most people have never even heard.
Yeah.
You've experienced it and could probably shed some light on why a sports psychologist existed and what they actually did for you.
Okay. So first question.
First question is, what percent of powerlifting and bodybuilding is mental compared to physical?
So the mental component of bodybuilding, I would say, much like other sports, please understand, is about 100% mental. First of all, the kind of person you have to be in your brain to think that you can get up on stage and be better than everyone else is a different way of thinking in the first place. But to go into the gym and beat yourself up and to sweat and to grind and to fail, in itself is a struggle. But I did find out that was the easiest part. So that's the physical part. The physical part is by far the easiest part of bodybuilding. Whereas the mental part of it is the whole rest of the day, from what you eat to when you eat it to how much you eat to how you drink. And again, I told you, just staying out of the sun before a contest is something. Well, imagine if you have a job where you're working for 12 or 14 hours a day, but somewhere in there you have to fit at least 3 meals. So you're eating 5 meals as a bodybuilder. You have to be able to sleep. If you're not getting enough sleep, I mean, nowadays they say you need 8 hours sleep. I always needed 8 hours sleep, but I never got 8 hours sleep as a competitor because I was on active duty, and they don't just give you enough time to do that. So mentally, you also have to be able to catch cat naps. So I would say that 100% of bodybuilding is mental, because you have to be thinking about it all day, all night. Everything you do, from when you wake up to what your morning rituals are to your nighttime rituals. I think to emphasize on sleeping, to not emphasize on sleeping would not be good. Sleeping is so important to recovery, because yes, once you put all the pieces of the puzzle together. So I woke up today, I ate. Okay, I went to work, I ate. I came home, I ate. I took my pre-workout, I worked out, I ate. Now I have to go to bed. Now, when you go to bed, now don't get me wrong, you recover as you recover. You're a human being, your body recovers, but it recovers its best when you're asleep. So when you go to sleep, that means you have eaten what you need to eat, you've drank enough fluids, mostly water, so that you can rehydrate and your body can recover. If you're not able to sleep well, you're not going to recover well. If you don't recover well, you are not going to meet your full potential. A lot of people will never know their full potential because they never put those pieces together. I think that putting emphasis on your sleep and getting enough sleep is so very important. Some people that have trouble sleeping, I was one of those people in the early 2000s after I got out of the service, and I found that I had insomnia, and I didn't know how important sleep was until I wasn't getting it. And that's a tough way to learn that lesson too, sir. It threw me off physically, but more than anything, it threw me off mentally. I just didn't have complete thoughts. I would start speaking and I would lose my. So sleep is important. I've even had a sleep study done last year. I'm sleeping really good nowadays, compared to what I was. But I would definitely tell people that are in this sport or any other sport that sleeping is important. And if you're not getting enough sleep, you need to see what you can do to better that. I have a great bed. Your mattress is important. I have a pillow because I had neck issues and I had nerve problems. I even got a comfort pillow that conforms to your head. So my head's in there real good and I'm able to sleep. And there's so many things. The temperature of the room, the temperature of your body. I do sleep with a weighted blanket. Some people are like, oh, it makes me feel like I'm being crushed.
I get it.
I get it. But for some reason, it just makes me feel nestled in. I sleep better with a weighted blanket. So look into things that may not even be that costly, by the way, either.
Yeah, man.
Help you sleep good.
Sleep is another one of those things that's kind of changed over time. It used to be something like, people would say stuff like, I don't need to sleep. Sleep's the cousin of death. I just need to hit it. I need to work out. And really it's become known that probably the most critical thing you can do is sleep. And I like your tips. Here's a couple of my tips that help me sleep. So there's something called, if you're a mouth breather, there's something called mouth tape. Yep. That is literally just a piece of breathable tape that you put over your mouth that stops you from breathing out your mouth while you sleep and forces you to breathe out your nose. I don't recommend it if you have like issues with your nasal cavity or can't breathe out your nose. But if you can, sleeping with mouth tape is a game changer. I wake up like, this is what people feel like when they sleep? I have no idea.
Yeah.
And also, too, you had mentioned the temperature of the room. This one's a little bit more expensive, but they make pads that go over top of your bed. The one I use is called a chili pad, where I can have it set to 68 degrees. So it doesn't matter what the temperature of the room is. I'm sleeping on 68 degrees. I don't sweat when I sleep. I wake up way more refreshed. But whatever you got to do, figure out how you can sleep better, because I'm with you. It is something that is so important, and so many people overlook it as like something they just have to do when they shut their eyes instead of something that's a really important part of living long and being healthy.
And that's why I link that to the mental aspect of being a competitor. Because if you're not getting enough sleep, you're not going to be on your game. I promise you. You're human, okay? Even those that are really, really good. I mean, there's some people that are just natural freaks of athleticism, and they can just on a good day, but still, I'm telling you, they'd be even better.
They'd be better with 8 hours sleep.
Yes, you can do better. And so that's why I linked those two. I just want to get that squared away with that.
Makes sense. All right, so now let's talk a little bit about your sports psychologist.
Yeah.
Tell us, what happened that made you get a sports psychologist, and then what do you feel like you got from the help of a sports psychologist?
So getting injured and being sidelined and not feeling that great and not being able to work out had a negative effect on me overall, physically and mentally. I missed it. My body missed it, just like sleep, going back to sleep, when you sleep, your body recovers, but really it affects you more mentally, not having enough sleep, than everything else. You know what I mean? But my sports psychologist taught me that there were a lot of different levels to being a good athlete. But first, you have to be good as a person, get squared away. And a lot of that is putting emphasis on things that matter. What you listen to on the radio. I remember when I first started going and seeing her, I was driving over to the city because it's over in Philadelphia, and I'd be listening to my playlist. A little hip hop and R&B, maybe, whatever. And I was getting there, and my vitals were getting taken, and they were a little bit high, and everything else. And as we spoke, she just told me, she says, there's little things that you can do that make you relax. Like, think about the things that you do to make you relax, and think about the things that do to make you stress. And I was like, that's true. Hip hop's great if you're lifting weights, but if you're trying to relax, it may not be the thing. So I changed what I listen to the gospel radio. Now, I know it's not for everybody, but for me it is. And just listening to gospel music on my way over to my sports psychologist made a difference. Now, how do I know it made a difference? Well, my sports psychologist put me in biofeedback therapy. Biofeedback therapy is when they hook up some wires to your fingers, and it's almost like a lie detector test. Goes to a computer, and it measures your breathing, measures your heart rate, and it measures your stress and everything else. And when I got there for my first appointment, I couldn't have been more off. If I just guessed, I knew I wasn't feeling my best, but I didn't know that my breathing was off from my heart rhythm. My body was not just under mental stress, but my physical stress was showing up on the screen. Okay, so for your heart, I guess it's like a red line, and then for your breathing, it was like a green line, and they were going in separate directions at separate paces, and they were dropping at different times, which means my body was not in rhythm. If your body's not in rhythm, you're not operating at your most.
Not in homeostasis.
No, you don't want to do that. So I did learn. It started with breathing, and I found out through the pain that I was in during my injuries and being sidelined, I was not breathing. I was holding my breath through the pain. I was even gritting my teeth. I mean, I went to my dentist, and my dentist said, "Hey, I see that you've been grinding your teeth." And I said, "Oh, that's new." And she said, "Well, I don't know. I'm going to get you a mouth guard, but like, is there anything going?" And I told her, I said, "Listen, I've been in pain for a long time, and it affected my teeth." And my sports psychologist says you're not breathing. So now I'm grinding my teeth at night when I'm sleeping because I'm stressed, and I'm not breathing correctly. And you cannot live, but for so long, if you're not breathing correctly, if you're grinding your teeth, if you're not getting up, it's just your quality of life is going to really diminish. And so I learned how to get those back on track. Now, it didn't happen overnight. I looked into other things that I could do outside of what my psychologist helped me. And the one thing I found, I just want to bring this up because it helped me so much, and that's the O2 trainer from Boss Rutan, the old MMA fighter. If you look that up, you'll find it. Now, there are many others, and I think that they're all effective. I just got lucky, and I think I got a good one. And
you got the Mercedes-Benz of the O2 trainers. I got the ones on Amazon that I got 3 for $30, so I could put one in my car, one in the sauna, and one in my office.
Yeah.
But the Boss Root is the stuff. And what that does is, just to explain what Neil's talking about, is it's something that you put in your mouth that you can adjust to make it feel like you're at Colorado level instead of at sea level. And because it forces you to breathe much harder, it strengthens your lungs ridiculously. I'm big into breathing. You nailed why I'm big into breathing too, Neil, because, we know your body can live 30 to 45 days without food. Your body can go 5 days without water. You can only live 3 minutes without breathing. So apparently breath and breath work is important. And people look at it like a hippie thing where it's like, no. Again, that's the past. The now is you need to learn breathing techniques. Did they teach you breathing techniques, or did your sports psychologist just tell you have to work on breathing?
My doctor definitely gave me breathing techniques. I even got an app on my phone for it. And I went through the motions. Now, the technique of the breathing was the same, but when I bought the device, the O2 trainer, I was doing the same routine and same everything, except I had the breather, and that's what made it twice as effective for me. The restricted breathing, and this is what they don't tell you, is that, yes, you can increase your lung capacity and do all that, but we have breathing muscles. Our breathing muscles are in the front of our abdominals, and are also on your back, around where your kidneys are. So when you get this O2 trainer, matter of fact, you're only going to do 4 minutes a day. You're going to feel your abs tight. You're going to feel like you did an abdominal workout. And then you find out, guess what? There are muscles that help your lungs inflate and deflate, which makes you more effective. So your lungs are your lungs. I mean, a lot of people think, oh, I made my lungs stronger. Not so much your lungs as the muscles that allow your lungs to take in the oxygen and then expel that oxygen. And you have so much muscle that do that they're about 12 pounds of muscle front and back. Now, if you develop these muscles through these breathing exercises using these devices, you will see a significant difference, not just when you exercise, but when you sleep, when you're just doing normal day-to-day stuff. Everything's going to be easier. Why? Well, you're getting more oxygen in your bloodstream. That's fuel, it's attention, it's everything, it's energy. So breathing, I think, is going to be more emphasized in the very near future, just like it took this long for everyone to find out that lifting weights and a lot of other things you should have been doing the whole time. I think that breathing is going to be one of those things that they put a lot of emphasis on, and I think it's going to become very popular.
Here's another reason why I know you're right with what you're saying, because some of the most recent studies that came out that try to determine what is the one thing you can point to that determine your best chance of living long. And there's two things that they've come up with. One, grip strength, which a lot of people wouldn't think about that.
Right.
Grip strength is a super important part to determine how long you're going to stay healthy and mobile, which equals how long you're going to live. But more important than that, lung capacity. Yeah. They've determined that the most important factor that determines how long you're going to live is lung capacity. So,
and that's one more to the list, leg strength. Turns out, new studies have shown that people that have very muscular legs that are squatting more specifically, that you do a lot of squats, for some reason, those people not only live longer, but the quality of their life is better. Now, I just gotten a hold of this recently. Now, I've always known, well, legs are half your body. So yeah, if your legs are in good shape, you're doing pretty good. That's 50% of you. But it turns out that it's even more important than we all know. So keeping your legs in shape, and there's a million ways to do it. You're going to run a marathon in like 2 weeks. Yeah, I couldn't do that. So the way that I get my legs strong, the way that you get your legs strong are different, but they're equally important. So I would suggest to those people that are lifting weights, a lot of people, I know when I was first started lifting weights, the one thing I actually didn't like to do was legs. And I already had skinny legs to begin with. So that was something that had to catch up with the rest of me over time. But once I did get legs, I felt a difference. Now I do spin. That's my primary way of getting cardio.
Okay.
But also it's, anything you could do like that for an extended amount of time that are going to increase your blood flow, get your oxygen, get your breathing going, and build, lean muscle is going to be beneficial for you, not just now with your mobility and strength, but in the long run, it's very important. So yeah, those three things right now, I think if you could just wrap your head around that and get that into your program or whatever you're doing for whatever goals you have, you're going to be better at it.
Love it. Now, finishing up on sports psychologists, because again, before talking to you, I think I knew they existed, but I don't know if I know anyone who's used one. And I can tell talking to you about it, it's been a huge advantage for you. Who do you think should have a sport? Should every athlete have a sports psychologist if you can afford it and have access to it? Or do you think there were certain reasons it worked for you that might not be for everybody?
First of all, I have to say, shout out to Dr. Jean. She's my doctor. I saw her this morning.
Where's she located? Give her a real shout out.
Yeah, Dr. Jean with the VA Medical Center in Philadelphia, PA. She's my doctor, and I saw her this morning, coincidentally, and yeah, she has really been on me about it. I mean, it's a case by case basis, but do I think that everyone should have one? I don't want to sound like I'm prescribing because I'm not a doctor.
Sure.
But yeah, I personally, if you're just going to ask my honest opinion as a person that, wants others to strive as much as I want myself to strive, I would say anybody that feels they need one, and anybody that can afford one, I would look into it, because I'm going to be honest with you. Again, I'm coming out of an injury and out of not being able to train for the longest time in my life. And I don't know if I'd be where I'm at now, mentally and physically, without having, gotten a sports psychologist. She's helped me that much. And just like earlier, you asked me what's the most important, how much is it mental? When I talk to her, I feel like it's all mental. I feel like it's all mental, because your perception of a task, your perception of an injury, your perception of everything is how you train yourself to perceive it and how you've learned to perceive it. Now, you could look at things as, oh my gosh, this is the end, or you could look at it like this is a setback, which can be a setup. I'm having time to set back and reassess and miss what I love doing. So when I get back to it, I'm going to hit it hard, and this is what I'm going to do different so that I don't run into the same roadblocks or detours that I did the last time. Having a sports psychologist also is someone to be accountable for. It's a tool, just like talk about the toolbox. Well, my doctor is a very big tool in my toolbox, and it even it doesn't just help me, but it has feedback. And so most great athletes do have a sports psychologist. Now, those that don't, they could be getting the same feedback from a really good coach.
Sure.
A really good coach is a psychiatrist, as you know. You know what I mean? So they could be getting it different. So you might not have to have an actual sports psychiatrist, but yes, I would recommend it to anyone that thinks they need it, anybody who wants to do better in their sport. And it won't stop there. So when the sport's over, what you've learned and the things that you've gotten out of having a sports psychologist will last with you through your life as well. Because the sports always end, but you should still be lifting weights to stay in shape so that when you're older, yeah, you're going to be older, but you'll be more mobile. It's mental, it's physical, and she really pointed me in the right direction. And I would definitely say anybody that needs to do better, feel better, or if you're coming back from something that you feel really set you back, this may be the one ingredient you don't have that's going to help you get squared away.
It makes sense, man. When you say something's 100% mental, and I get why you say that, because you gave some good examples that I don't think people think about. It's not when you're performing at the sport that really takes the mental capacity. It's all day, every day. When you want to be elite at anything, it's how you sleep, how you wake up, what you do in the morning, what your routine is, when you exercise, how you eat. Everything is mental. What you eat is mental. Otherwise, you'll just eat crap unless you got to think about it and be mentally strong to go, no, my body needs this so I can perform at its best. So makes sense what you're saying, 100% mental, which makes sense why you should have a sports psychologist or someone that you can reflect on, whether it's a great coach. I like that you said that. A great coach, you might not need a sports psychologist, but probably couldn't hurt either. So
yeah, and I will tell you, I don't want to forget this point because it's so important. Stress was probably my worst enemy during all this. Okay, so yeah, I was off and not lifting weights. Oh, that's rough. Yeah, and just not feeling myself. That's rough as well. And looking in the mirror and not looking like myself. Ooh, that's a tough pill to swallow. But the biggest thing I needed to be concerned with was stress. Why stress? Because stress comes with a hormone, a stress hormone that's called cortisol. Cortisol, the stress hormone that's in everyone's body, that when you get stressed,
fight or flight,
can ravage your muscles like nothing else. It literally eats away at your muscles, just like any illicit drug would do. And it sounds crazy, I know, but those people who suffer, and I say suffer, I don't take that lightly, with alcohol abuse or any other illicit drugs, all of these compounds can literally have almost the same effect as having a very stressed out life. You could be lifting all day, but when you're not lifting and you're not eating right, you're not sleeping right, and you're stressing, you have something not just not working for you, it's working against you. And it will make you bloated. It will make you hold water. And just like the GLP-1s, it will reduce your muscle. And your muscle density is everything with my former sport. So my sports psychologist taught me, again, I was talking about the process, how you process normal stuff. I had a flood in my basement recently, okay? But I've been seeing a sports psychologist. I don't know how I would have reacted before. All I know is that when it happened, I felt like I took it pretty good. And then I had to reflect, well, why am I taking everything so good? It's not just that. There's other things that have come up. There's normal things that, it's life. Everyone has it. It's not just me. Everyone has stressors. But for me, these are things that have happened recently. I process everything differently. This help I'm getting is not just for the gym. It's not just so I can look good when I go to the beach. This thing affects me when problems arise. First, okay, I was shocked. I stopped breathing. Okay, let's start breathing. Okay, now I'm breathing. Okay, now the basement's messed up. Do you know a guy? Yeah, I know a guy. Call him. Okay, now what are you going to worry about? I can't do anything about it. You cannot worry about the things you cannot control. That's half of our stress as human beings, whether you compete, whether you're an athlete or not. Worrying about things you can't control is probably the worst things you can do for your body, whether you exercise or not. So, learning that simple tool of stopping and saying, it's really not that bad. And even if it is that bad, I can't fix it, but I know someone that can. Now I just have to relax, be patient, and believe this will resolve itself. Okay. I speak a lot to people about, goals and stuff. And I always say, only tend to the parts of the garden that you can reach. And that's because if you plant seeds somewhere that you can't weed them or water didn't you just waste a seed, and it doesn't have any potential of growing. And if it does grow, the weeds will kill it. Only worry about what you can affect. Everything else you need to not let go, like forget about it and just be irresponsible. You can't let it overwhelm you. Put it in its place. Put it in perspective. Do what you can do and let it be. And things, generally work out. Now, is it always going to work out that way? No. But I promise you this, worrying is only going to be another problem on top of your problem. So now you have two
Yep.
problems instead of one. So I know it sounds easy. It's not. I'm still a work in progress. I think a lot of people are. But you got to keep going, and you have to remain positive, not to the point, where you're delusional, like everything's great.
Yeah, don't put your blinders on, but
Right.
have a positive outlook, because it's not what happens to you, it's how you react to what happens to you. So
Right. How you
totally
are is
understand.
not who you are. So people go through things and rough times, and that's not who you are. It's just something you're going through. Don't let a problem, attach itself to you and become part of your identity. Okay?
Yep.
That's the best advice I can give for anybody for doing anything
It's
that
good
somebody.
advice. It's good advice. Now, some other advice to give people, because I know you had talked about, being injured and having to come back from being injured.
Yeah.
Question really is, what would you tell people who maybe aren't weightlifters but want to become a weightlifter, whether you're young or older?
Yeah.
How should you approach it so you're less likely to get sidelined and then just give up on what you started doing?
Knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. So I would say, I will tell you this: when I was young, I was just so blessed to have family that was in bodybuilding. But I also went to a church. I was a younger guy, probably 14 years old, and one of the guys that went to my church was a WWF, back when it was WWF, not WWE wrestler. Now he was a nobody. He was called Good Boy Gone Bad, and and I saw him wrestle Jake the Snake and all these guys. Well, he took me to the gym, and he took us to the Monster Factory where they trained to be WWF wrestlers.
Oh,
And
shit.
and the thing is, I learned at a very early age, if you want to be something, talk to someone who's already that. Skip the middle guy. A lot of guys have advice, but like, I gotta be honest with you, it was hard for me, even as a young person. I was pretty, I was not that, bright. I will say, in regards to just, knowing how to learn and to venture out to do so. This is my first sport. This is the first thing I fell in love with, was weightlifting. But I learned at an early age that if you want to be something, go to the best at it. And if you can't go to them, to actually know them, read about them. I guess it was my junior year of high school. I did a report on Arnold Schwarzenegger's biography, and I learned more from that as a bodybuilder than I did from anything. And I think I'm 100% sure that it was the best grade I ever got on a report, because I was so
Scared.
doggone interested in the topic and the man, obviously. And so put yourself around the people that are doing it. Next to that, I would say, especially nowadays, because we were not equipped with the internet coming up. There was no internet.
YouTube.
Matter of fact, you had to have a set of encyclopedias if you wanted to study something like this, or there wasn't even anything on
No,
TV.
like you said, you had to know someone, where now you just have to know that YouTube exists and search
Yeah,
for what you want to learn,
yeah,
and you can learn anything.
yeah, yeah. And I suggest you do that. I don't think you can learn too much. And the more you learn, you're going to find out. Hey, I've been doing it for 40 years. Eric, I learn something new all the time. After 40 years, you'd think you'd master something. No, I learned something new all the time. Or I relearn something new all the time. Did you ever read a book and then read it 10 years later and you see it
Totally
differently?
different book.
Correct. Why? Well, perception.
You're different. Your
We're talking
perception's
about
different.
perception and wisdom, and it's everywhere. It affects every aspect of your life, and as soon as you figure that out, it'll make you take time and pay attention to detail in every aspect of your life, not just the things that you're necessarily interested in. Okay, you can find shortcuts to loading a dishwasher that can save you a minute of your life. Now, that sounds silly, but time is important. Time, you can't buy time. Anything you could do to be more efficient at anything you do is important. And if you keep doing that, you're going to automatically be more efficient at anything you do when you pick something up. So being efficient in things that don't seem to be connected to what you're doing is just as important. It's because you're always looking to be better at everything. That way, when you come into, like, you want to be just as dedicated, like when you run, in your mind, you have to be thinking about, this is a marathon. I'm not training for a marathon. This is a marathon. I'm going to run today like it's a marathon. I'm not going to run today and hope that I'm going to be in shape for a marathon I may or may not run. No, you need to get in the mental mindset of, this is it right now. Let me.
That's this Saturday. This Saturday, I run 22 miles.
Right.
And that's the pretty much pre-marathon. Once I do that, I'm like, all right, I got this. But
Right.
it is every time I'm running, like you said, while I'm running, whether I'm in the woods by myself, I'm in the marathon. I'm
Right.
thinking to myself is getting to the finish line. And if you're not, you're more likely to give up and walk.
Right. Right. I would also say, to those people that are doing it, if you're not 100% into this, I wouldn't do it. You could be a weightlifter forever.
So I was going to say, weight lift.
Yeah, bodybuilding is not weightlifting. Yeah, you have to lift weights to be one. Powerlifting is not weightlifting. It's a different level. It's a different animal, if you will. This is something that, you're going to give up. I lost a lot of time being a bodybuilder, being a powerlifter. I missed out on a lot of parties, a lot of fun, even good stuff. I missed out on good stuff, hanging out with friends and stuff, because bodybuilding just takes so much of you, so much of your time. You don't want to be around too rowdy of a bunch. You don't want to be around alcohol. You don't want to be around just certain elements. And I look back on my life and I realize, in those, say, 15 years of actual competitiveness, I lost out on a lot of other things that are beautiful in life. Now,
but you got some great pictures, bro. You got some great pictures.
I do indeed have a couple good pictures to show for it, and I don't regret it, because, it wasn't just something I wanted to do. I will say this: as much as I lost by entertaining the idea and actually becoming a bodybuilder, I think that if I hadn't done it as best as I could for as long as I could, that's a regret I don't think I'd be able to live with. I wanted it, and I was that obsessed with it that I'm just glad I got the time, and God gave me the time to chase my dreams, catch them, and actually live with them for a little while. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for that. And I'm proud to be a weightlifter, especially in our day before we knew how good it was for you. Because I'm not going to lie, and no dig to my parents, but there were times they were like, "You sure this is okay? Like, you're getting kind of big." They even questioned it because they didn't know much about it. It's kind of, again, it's a little bit taboo, but I have to say it was probably one of the best decisions I made in my life, because it affected, all the sports I played, and it affected my mindset. And even, I will say, between varsity football and, I will say, weightlifting, not bodybuilding, but varsity football and weightlifting, and just being raised in a very disciplined home environment, made me ready and easily adaptable to be on active duty and do my job in that regard. I really, really do. And it's because you got to be hard. You got to be disciplined. You have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. There's just so many things about it. You have to be able to take orders. You have to be able to take a hit. I mean, all these things that we talk about, this is all football and weightlifting. I know it sounds like, well, how can
No.
I'm just talking about me. I'm just
No, and
talking about
it's actually what I wanted to end on, is talking a little bit about the military and working out in the military. But at first, I got to tell you, you got to give your parents a little bit of a break, because of course they were like,
yeah.
"It's a little bit weird. Look how big you're getting." They didn't know you were doing 500 push-ups a day in your bedroom.
No.
What's going on here?
Yeah. I mean, not many parents, would think, my kid's sneaking around doing push-ups, right? And it's not a thing. But yeah, I was a weird kid, I guess. But yeah, and I do understand as a parent, because they didn't have if I didn't know about it and I was into it that much, how could they possibly know the positive effects of being a weightlifter?
For sure. And they're just parents looking out for kids. It is what it is. So
Absolutely.
Over to military. So, you were already jacked when you went in the military, correct?
I was built, the thing about my size was, again, I started out as a little guy. So, I graduated high school at about 165.
Okay.
And then just a few years ago, before I got hurt, I was about 260. And so, and it was mostly muscle. I never, ever had a high body fat content.
Now, dude, you got what, a 32-inch waist?
Yeah, we're down to a 31 now.
Holy crap.
But it's genetics. I can't really take credit for it. I was born from small people, and so I have small joints and a small waist. So that it is kind of genetic. I couldn't just eat terribly and look like that, but it's rather easy to have a thin waist.
How much of your day while being in the military was, I know you had said, like, it's hard to sleep 8 hours and it's hard to get your meals in. How much of your day revolved around working out when you were in the military? And how did you have to sneak to do it? Or was it like they wanted you to be doing that because the bigger you are, the stronger you are, the better airman you are?
So, I did it for my whole career. So in the beginning, I did it when they allowed me to do it. And they weren't too, again, even in the military, there is an armed forces bodybuilding show, but it's very, very rare, not like football or basketball and stuff. So they allowed whatever time you have left after you're done doing, Air Force stuff, then yeah, of course you can work out. But after I was successful at it, and I made myself look good in my squadron, it's a positive thing. If you're out there and you're winning and you're, a good positive reflection of what squadron you're in. So it became easier. So once I was in for a while, they did support me, but no matter what, it was always mission first. So I never got out of work because I had to work out, or even if I had a contest, to be honest with you.
Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, and I understood that. That's what I signed up for. Was I always happy about it? Well, no, but I did get, my props after I showed myself that, yes, I can be a good airman and I could be a bodybuilder, and they shouldn't conflict one another. As a matter of fact, they should feed in to one another. I think that weightlifting made me a better soldier. I think being a soldier or airman made me a better weightlifter, because once again, it's all mental, it's all discipline, and you have to want it. It's not something that you can be lackadaisical about. I didn't show up to place. I showed up to win, and I didn't show up to be a good airman. I showed up to be a great one. At least that was my attempt. So they definitely go hand in hand. And once again, I'm glad that I was a weightlifter before that, because I think it actually made it easier. And I was definitely had an edge in the physical aspect. I didn't worry about any physical aspect of training whatsoever, which allowed me to focus on the other aspects, which is, accelerated learning. I mean, there's a lot of learning, and people don't think about it. Truthfully, I think if you do 4 to 6 years in the military, you should have equivalent of a bachelor's degree, because it's just as much learning as you would if you went to college. But that's
a bachelor's in life.
Yeah.
Masters, you got 6 years, you get a master's, bro.
Right, 6 years is a master. So anything more than that, who knows? So I guess I should have my PhD. but yeah. So those are the two best things I've did in my life. I'm glad you brought it up. The two biggest things I think in my life were absolutely serving my country and being a weightlifter for life. And I think it's made me who I am, and I think it's going to continue to let me be who I am and continue to let me reinvent myself.
Neil, I think this is where we end it, my man, but I got to tell you, You got a book in you. You got to figure it out. You got some knowledge, some wisdom, some life experience that, man, you could probably help a lot of younger people and also people aging as they're figuring out how to work out in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, which is what you're going to do. So get
That would
to
be
it,
great.
man.
Maybe we could do something one day.
Hey, listen, I'm a talker. I'm not a writer. I try and put it on paper. It doesn't really work the same. I can just do this. You want to have a conversation and then record it and turn it into a book? I'm your guy.
Outstanding.
Listen, honored to have you on again. We're talking to Cornelius Walker, who is an amateur bodybuilding and powerlifting champion, and also can't forget former Air Force Security Forces member. So proud of you, man. Thank you for your service to the country.
Thank you.
Thank you for being you and working through this and being able to have an open conversation like this that I really think will benefit younger people and older people who are either into weightlifting or want to become powerlifters and bodybuilders and can learn from someone like you. So we're going to do this again, my man.
Yes, sir.
Million Hour Life. Thank you for being a guest.
All right.